I am Michael Kurosh. I live in Santa Barbara, California, one of the most beautiful places on earth. My design center is where people come to reimagine their homes and spaces. I work with the best designers, clients with broad tastes, and experts who navigate the fascinating world of design. I'm always excited to learn something new, and I never say no to a challenge. This is Design Santa Barbara. Welcome to Design Santa Barbara. I'm Michael Kurosh, and today we are in Washington DC, the capital of the United States, exploring its iconic building, beautiful art galleries, and its historic sites. Please join us. Washington, D.C. is the capital city and only federal district of the United States. It is located on the east bank of the Potomac River, which forms its southern border with the state of Virginia and shares a land border with the state of Maryland. The city was named for George Washington, the first president of the United States, and the federal district is named after Columbia, a female personification of the nation. As the seat of the U.S. federal government and several international organizations, the city is an important political capital. It is one of the most visited cities in the U.S., seeing over 20 million people travel there annually. In the years after the American Revolution, the formally designated capital of the United States moved from city to city, including New York and Philadelphia. With the ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1790, Article 1, Section 8 called for the establishment of a permanent district to become the seat of government of the United States of America. On July 9, 1790, Congress passed the Residence Act, which approved the creation of a national capital on the Potomac River. The exact location was to be selected by President George Washington, who signed the bill into law on July 16th, formed from land donated by the states of Maryland and Virginia. The initial shape of the federal district was a square measuring 10 miles on each side, totaling 100 square miles. President Washington appointed Pierre Charles L'Enfant to devise a plan for the new city. The Enfant Plan, as it came to be known, called for a grid centered on the United States Capitol, which would stand on the top of a hill. North, south, and east-west streets formed the grid. Wider diagonal grand avenues, later named after the States of Union, crossed the grid. Enfant's broadest grand avenue was a 400-foot wide garden-lined esplanade that became the National Mall. This allowed a direct line from the seat of Congress to the Executive Mansion. Construction on the city immediately began, and in 1791, the city was formally named in honor of President Washington. After several conflicts with the city's planning commission, Enfant departed the project, and surveyor Andrew Ellicott, who helped select the site, was brought on to finish the construction. Here you can see Enfant's original plan submitted to George Washington, followed by a revised plan. And finally, the hybrid Enfant-Ellicott plan that was used for construction. In 1800, the seat of government was finally moved to the new city. And on February 27, 1801, the District of Columbia Organic Act placed the district under the jurisdiction of Congress. The act also organized the unincorporated territory within the district into two counties, the County of Washington on the northeast bank of the Potomac and the County of Alexandria on the southwest bank. On May 3, 1802, the city of Washington was granted a municipal government consisting of a mayor appointed by the President of the United States. The centerpieces of this new capital included the Capitol Building, the White House, the Treasury Building, and the War Office. We will be back with more Design Santa Barbara after the break. Stay tuned. Today on Design FYI, we're going to talk about what not to buy when you're going shopping for rugs. Most big outlets or national chains, they sell nowadays hand-tufted rugs. This sounds like it's hand knotted, it's done by hand, but actually they are not. It's called hand-tufted and is actually a gun that rolls the wool around the warp, and they are not good rugs at all. So this is a sample we're having here for you to see. Anything that has a backing like this, flip your rugs over at home, see if it has a backing, is absolutely not good. So what it does is it hides what they did below this thing, which is a latex glue, which actually is toxin. And if you have got any rugs over the net, I hate to say it, over the net, because it's easy to sell and they're inexpensive, you buy these things over the internet. So when it comes to your house, they smell. Have you noticed that? They smell more like a gasoline or more like a diesel because they don't let the latex cure. And the latex that glues this wool to this backing smells a lot. On top of that, they shed quite a lot. The wool is cheap because they need to be inexpensive and they shed. I would not recommend you to get anything, again, that has a backing and is glued because it comes apart very easily. It is temporary. It is not a green product because they wear very quickly, end up in the fill, and just basically as a landfill junk we are adding to our planet. The things I would recommend you to get, unlike these things that have backing, is the rugs that they have nuts to them. So as what to buy, I highly recommend you to get some rugs that they are hand knotted. And how you can see, flip it to the back and you can see the knots are done individually, and each one is slightly different than the next one because they're done by hand, and the intensity of the wool and the pull they have, the weaver, makes them look different. Also the sides are done by hand. That you can see very easily. If you want to buy a real rug, please come to Santa Barbara Design Center and I can gladly help you. Thank you for joining us on Design FYI, Santa Barbara Design Center, Fort and Olive. Let's talk about my favorite subject, rugs. Here at Rugs and More inside Santa Barbara Design Center, we pride ourselves in offering the finest selection of rugs. With any size, shape, and design imaginable, let us help you find the ideal rug for your home. We have a vast assortment of new and antique rugs. Whether you're looking for a touch of modern or an heirloom that can be passed down for generations, you will find it here. Also, we offer expert repair and cleaning to bring your treasured family rugs back to life. Don't settle for poorly made internet rugs. Let's get real. They are made with harmful chemicals and they don't last. Our rugs are the best for less, and we always offer our 110% lowest price guarantee. And to save even more, come in during our rug sale and let our expert staff guide you to the perfect rug. Rugs and More inside Santa Barbara Design Center, 410 Olive Street. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. Today we are in Washington DC, capital of the United States, exploring the architecture, art, and the iconic buildings. Please join us. In its early years, Washington DC's residents clashed with the House and Senate over building improvements, which Congress had financial control of. Throughout the first decade of the 19th century, a series of canals were constructed and the city began to grow. But one fateful event during the War of 1812 changed the course of our nation's capital's history. In August 1814, 2 years into the second major conflict between the United States and Great Britain, a decisive victory by English forces left Washington, D.C. strategically vulnerable. Redcoats marched on the city and began to set fire to American government buildings. In a truly heroic act, First Lady Dolly Madison helped load the iconic and priceless Lansdowne portrait of George Washington into a carriage as enemy troops entered the city. Had she not risked her own life to do this, the painting would surely have been lost. For only moments later, as she and her husband, President James Madison, fled the besieged city, the forces of the United Kingdom set fire to the White House. The destruction of Washington, D.C. sent shockwaves across the United States. After emerging victorious from the War of 1812, it was proposed that the ruined Capitol be abandoned and the seat of government be moved back to Philadelphia. The proposal was narrowly defeated in Congress and reconstruction of Washington, D.C. began. By the 1830s, Washington, D.C. was a thriving city of 20,000. With the arrival of the B&O Railroad in 1835, travel to the city from northern and southern population centers became much easier. During its hot, humid summers, the city was known to thin to as few as 5,000 residents as people sought more comfortable climate. As America continued to grow, so did its capital. The halls of Congress were expanded and plans were drawn up to build a massive, imposing Capitol dome that could be seen for miles. With rising tensions between the North and South coming to a head after the 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln, the country was thrown into civil war. Washington, D.C.'s proximity to the Mason-Dixon line made it a prime target for Confederate attack, so the city was heavily fortified the entire duration of the war and was only attacked once during the 4-year conflict. With numerous government and military jobs required by the war, Washington, D.C.'s population more than tripled to over 75,000 people. Though work on the massive obelisk monument to George Washington was halted by the war, President Lincoln was adamant that construction of the Capitol dome continue. After the war, the city continued to grow. By 1870, the population was over 100,000 people. In 1877, the Washington Post newspaper began printing, and 1 year later, the first telephones were installed in the city. President Rutherford B. Hayes became the first U.S. head of state to make a phone call, speaking to telephone inventor Alexander Graham Bell some 13 miles away. In 1885, the towering Washington Monument was finally completed and dedicated. At 555 feet tall, it was the tallest structure in the world until the Eiffel Tower was completed 4 years later. The discoloration from the Civil War construction delay can be seen to this day. Throughout the Gilded Age, Washington, D.C. continued to grow. Electric streetcar service commenced and embassies of foreign nations were constructed. Today, the city hosts 177 foreign embassy offices. In 1901, a commission set out to redesign the National Mall and created a space that evoked the grandeur of great European capitals such as London, Paris, and Rome. This included dedicated spaces around the core government offices to parks and monuments. The crowning achievement of this remodel was the Lincoln Memorial, dedicated in 1922. As the 20th century progressed, Washington, D.C. grew into one of the most respected cities on earth. The Supreme Court building was completed, the Pentagon became a hub of U.S. defense, and countless monuments were constructed for titans of American history. Let's look at some of them now. One of the greatest things about Washington, D.C. isn't even a building. It's an idea enshrined in the First Amendment of our Constitution, a right to demonstrate and speak your mind. Washington, DC has played host to peaceful protests for as long as it has existed. Women's rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, no matter what your political beliefs are, you have an open forum for civil discourse in our nation's capital. Despite all this, Washington, D.C.'s biggest fault may be its lack of representation for its own residents. As a federal district, it has no elected senators, and its sole member of the U.S. House can't vote. To this day, citizens of Washington, D.C. have adopted a motto from the Revolutionary War: taxation without representation. For most of the world's capitals, they are cities that took root in antiquity and were built into seats of power: London, Paris, Berlin, etc. Washington, D.C. is unique in that it was built for one singular purpose: to run the United States. It has grown and flourished into one of the most beautiful cities of the world, and for that reason, we are honored to name this magnificent town one of Design Santa Barbara's great cities. I hope you have enjoyed this view of our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Looking forward to seeing you next week on Design Santa Barbara. How many times in the last year have you said to yourself, I really need a new sofa? Spending so much time at home lately, you deserve the most comfortable furniture. At Santa Barbara Design Center's massive showroom, we have numerous selections of sofas and sectionals that you can take home today. Or we can custom build your dream sofa. We make the most comfortable and stylish sofas and sectionals in the industry today. Just ask the top designers in Santa Barbara. They use our sofas and sectionals in their projects because they know clients are beyond satisfied with the results. For a decision as important as this, don't go online or buy from a catalog photo. Come into 410 Olive Street and let our experienced team help you find the perfect fit for your home. Trust me, you want to sit on it before you buy it. My grandfather taught me about the beauty of the rugs. Each one tells a story. Story about the person who wove it, the person who bought it, the person who inherits it, the person who treasures it. It's amazing how simply looking at an object can bring you back to a different place and time, or remind you of someone you love. At Santa Barbara Design Center, we want to help you find a rug that will travel through time with your family for generations to come. Visit us at 410 Olive Street and find your treasure today. Today I would like to talk to you about rugs. 3 important things to remember when you are buying a rug. First is the size. Size is very important, and this is what you have to do your study. So if it's for a living room, I recommend to have the front legs of all the furniture to sit on the certain rug you're buying. So go measure it. Make sure you have at least a foot extended beyond the front legs. If you can afford it, get a rug that encompasses all the furniture to be sitting on it. So usually for a living room, you're talking an 8x10, 9x12, a bigger living room, 10x14, and if you want something to sit on it, 12x15 or 12x18. Second, there is a style. It is very important that the style you pick matches the house you have. Check the room. Is it a traditional house? Is it a modern house? Is it a transitional house? You pick the style matching your house and your living style. Lastly, and one of the most important steps, is the type of rug you're gonna buy. I highly recommend you to do your study and see what type of rug is good for your situation. Most rugs I recommend are hand knotted. So these are the type of rugs that they're done by hand. They're mostly natural fibers. They don't have any chemicals. They don't have any machines involved making it. They're hand knotted and they get more valuable over the time, and they're very durable and long lasting. These are 3 things to remember when you're buying a rug. Thank you for joining us. This week on Michael's Minute, we're gonna be talking about my favorite subject, rugs. Every designer will tell you to start from the rug up. It's the key. We have personally curated a rug collection of thousands, and with over 100 combined years of design experience, we can help you find the perfect rug for your space. And if you absolutely have to look online, go to santabarbaradc.com or rugsamore.com, find the perfect rug, then come in here and see it in person. I will gladly show it to you myself. And with all our rugs 50% off, our prices can't be beat. Come into 4th and Oliver Street and let us help you find your rug. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. This week we are learning about incredible antiquities from around the world. Here we are in front of these magnificent Mughal gates. So these were made during the Mughal period and they're very exquisite and not too many of them are in this scale. The Mughal Empire, encompassing much of modern day India, existed from 1526 to 1857. Although founded through military conflict, the Mughal Empire revolutionized the region with its approach to government administration. The initial tax codes set up by the monarchy allowed for economic expansion and a certain level of upward mobility for the middle class. A uniform silver currency created robust trade and government stability. This was also an incredible time for the arts. Mughal art flourished under royal patronage, resulting in painting, poetry, textile creation, and as we are about to see with these gates, architecture. Several Mughal sites are today protected as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including Fort Agra and the Taj Mahal. Although it lasted nearly 3 centuries, the Mughal Empire eventually fell due to European expansion and eventually British occupation. So this was made for the outside gates of a summer garden that the Mughal aristocracy and emperors used to have outside Yamuna River, outside Delhi, and you know where Taj Mahal is, that's the river that runs next to it. They were living like any king, but even better because they had all the wealth in the world and they were actually cultured and they were enjoying life. So this particular one is made of teak. That's why it's very sturdy and has lasted all this, and it's for outdoors. Has nice beautiful carvings on it, very nice detail. And if you look carefully at it, it is one ginormous gate and one little one. So this was made originally for the emperor and entourage to come in, and they used to go around. They didn't have Rolls Royces back then, so they had horses. So they used to open the double door, and as you can see, a man on a horse could go through it. And they didn't want to get out of it to go through the gate, so they just run through it. But then during day-to-day, some servants came and they need to deliver food or whatever. They opened the small gate. And this still has the original hardware, which if you look carefully, every one of them is done by hand meticulously and is old. Look at the size of these nails. I mean, they are impossible to do nowadays because it's just too much labor. And if you look at the hardware, it's still original hanging at it. It's a beautiful cultural piece, and I wish I have a garden and I can put this one in it, but anyway, it's a beautiful piece and it will add to any room or any garden, and obviously it was made for outdoors, and it is at our entrance. Come and look at it in the design center. Our next antiquity is this stunning trunk, but first let's learn how trunks have been vital in people's life over the centuries. The concept of the travel trunk dates back thousands of years in places such as China. Trunks can serve as an easy way to move clothing, food, or personal treasures while traveling, or storing objects of value at home. Many early trunks were heavily fortified to protect valuables. In Western cultures, the travel trunk, as we know it, first became popular in the 18th century. As people began to travel for leisure, trunks became synonymous with adventure. It was a common tradition to apply picturesque images of the places people had traveled to on the outside of your trunk. Travel trunks eventually went out of favor as the modern suitcase gained popularity. But trunks still hold high regard in interior design. Many can be seen in houses today. Some still use the traditional travel trunk though, with high-end designer trunk sets selling for as much as $250,000. Today we have this stunning 19th century Zanzibar trunk. So most likely actually is made in Oman. And there is a very close geographic distance between Oman and Zanzibar. And the reason is because most of these were made for the Arabian Peninsula to use. And they have heavily influenced by Moorish style. And they call them a Zanzibar chest, and they're a dowry piece. And the dowry pieces back then meant the valuable of the bride went to the groom's house, and that was dowry paid. Back then they used to put stuff together to give to the bride to take to the husband's home, and that was like a goodwill, and this is part of that. It is very ornate, has a lot of handicraft in it. The four sides is decorated, but the back is not. So because it used to go against the wall or in front of the bed. And from inside is very plainly decorated, as we can see. They were made up to even 1950s, but the old ones are rare to come by because they just disintegrated and people put them away. It's made of Middle Eastern hardwood, most likely olive. Has beautiful, stunning look into it. Nowadays, the old ones that they are 70, 80 years old sell between $1,000 to $2,000. This particular one, I think, is worth at least $4,000 to $5,000. Anyway, beautiful piece. Come and see it in the store. I hope you have enjoyed this look into some treasures from our collection. I invite you to come into Santa Barbara Design Center and learn more about them in person.